Hey, this is Mr. Warden. We're going to do a little practice with reflections. And what you want to do is you want to watch, make sure you understand what the prompt is, give it a try, pause what I'm doing, give it a try, and then compare what you came up with the answer key that I'm going to give for each one of these. So we're starting off with this triangle. It has points at 8, 3, 12, 1, and 5, negative 4. And the reason it has two of these here is in order to make the triangle draw, I had to put the 0.83 twice. But at any rate, these are the points, 12, 1, 5, negative 4, and 8, 3. Oops, and let me zoom out again. And what I want you to do is I want you to figure out what will the points be if we reflect the object, this is the object, across the y-axis. What will those points become in the reflection? Okay, and I want you to pause the video and see if you can come up with what the answer is. Now I'm going to assume you have paused the video. If you didn't pause the video, write down what you think the answer is, and then I will give you a key here. Okay, I'm going to assume you paused the video. So here we go. I'm copying my points from before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move each one of these points across the y-axis. And all I have to do is change the x value, the horizontal coordinate. And I'm just changing it by changing its sign. So 8, 3 becomes negative 8, 3. And so now I have a point here and here. So let me actually go ahead and let that be labeled. So now 8, 3 became negative 8, 3. 12, 1 is going to become negative 12, 1. So 12, 1 flipped over, made a mirror image on the other side of the y-axis. 5, negative 4 is going to become negative 5, 4. And then, of course, I had to circle it back to the other side. All right, now currently it doesn't have lines, but you can see all the vertices are there. I'm just going to give it lines. And there you go. We have a reflection image across the y-axis. Now I'd like, and these were the points, negative 8, 3, negative 12, 1, negative 5, 4. And those are just the opposites of all the points that we had from our object. Now I want you to take the object and reflect it across the x-axis instead of the y-axis. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is pause the video and give it a try. See if you can come up with what those coordinates are going to be. 8, 3 will become what? 12, 1 will become what? And 5, negative 4 is going to become what? So assuming you pause the video, I will go ahead and give you the answers now. So I'm going to grab my original object. I'm going to copy those points. Control A, Control C, Control V. And in order to reflect something across the x-axis, what has to happen is the y values have to change sign because I'm changing vertically. So this 8, 3 should become 8, negative 3 to be on the opposite side of the x-axis. So 8, 3 becomes 8, negative 3. Let's go ahead and let that be labeled so you can see it happening. Okay. And then 12, 1 becomes 12, negative 1. And 5, negative 4 becomes 5, 4. So this 5, negative 4 flips over the x-axis that way. And I have to clean this up here and make that a negative 3. And now let's give them lines. So all the vertices are in position. Let's give it the lines it needs. Okay, I'm not sure why it's doing that, so give me a second. Give me a little more room. I know why, because I gave it labels, so there's formatting issues for the labels. Okay, so here we go. I have flipped this. It's a mirror image. I've reflected it across. The green one has been reflected across the x-axis, and so all the y values change signs. And that's pretty much all there is to it for reflections when we're just dealing with the x and the y axis. All right, I hope that was helpful. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more just for good measure. We are now going to reflect. We can either reflect this image across the x-axis or the new red image. I'm sorry, let me see here. Yes, the new red image here across the y-axis. In fact, they should produce the same thing. So if I flip this red one across the y-axis or this black one across the x-axis, we should end up in exactly the same place. So I'm just going to grab this one, put it here. I'll also grab this reflection across the y-axis and put it here. Now watch what's going to happen. So for the green one here, the green one, I'm going to reflect this one. So reflect the previous reflection across the y-axis. Okay, and to do that, all I have to do, and you should pause this video and see what's going to happen. Assuming you've paused it, I'll go ahead and give you the answer. So what's going to happen with the points for this red one here, which I'm going to reflect across the y-axis, and now I'm using these green points going across the y-axis. I'm just going to change the signs of all of the x coordinates because I'm changing the horizontal. I'm reflecting horizontally here. Okay, and let's give it lines. There they are. Okay, and I will go ahead and give it coordinates. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the first one so it's not distracting. Okay, so I've just reflected this one here. Now you might notice it is now a mirror image of our original reflection. We reflected our original object across the y-axis. Okay, so I've reflected the one that reflected across the x-axis, now across the y-axis for a second image. Now, what would happen if I reflect this one across the x-axis? Well, as you might imagine, it's going to end up, it will end up, let's see, is that the right one? Okay. What I want to do now, actually, what I want to do is I want to grab this reflection down here. What we're going to do is we're going to be reflecting that one across the x-axis. Okay, and you should pause the video and see if you can come up with what it's going to become. Okay, and what I assume you paused it for crossing the x-axis. That was the image from our original object. That image will change the y sign. So 3 becomes -3, 1 becomes -1, and -4 becomes +4, and 3 becomes -3. And I end up right on top of the reflection across the y-axis. So these reflections will end up on top of each other. Let me go ahead and give it lines. Go. There's lines. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on our original image. Okay, I'm going to turn off all the labeling because they kind of distract from being able to see the beauty of this symmetry. So I think I'll change the color of this reflection. I'll make that, make it orange. Okay, there we go. Now we can distinguish them. So my original object was the green triangle. We reflected across the y-axis by changing all of the x values signs, and we ended up and keeping all the y values signs. And we ended up with this black mirror image reflection of our green image. So this is green object, or pre-image. Okay. Okay, now then we reflected our object across the x-axis, in which case we kept all of our x signs and changed the y signs. So vertical signs flipped numbers. So if I click on these, you can see the y value change signs. Okay, then we went ahead and flipped, oh my goodness, it is doing very sensitive things today. Okay, so now we took the reflection across the x-axis, reflected across the y-axis, and we did the same thing with our original reflection and did that across the x-axis, and they both ended up in exactly the same place. So horizontal reflection to vertical reflection to horizontal reflection, we end up in the exact same place, and we're just reflecting across the x and y axes. And I'm hoping that this gives you a little more confidence with how to do reflections. Next practice will involve reflections that are a little more complex, involving lines that might be not the x or y axis, might not be horizontal or vertical as well.